Good afternoon. Welcome to the Malcolm Renfrew Interdisciplinary Colloquium. It's Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. I'm Kenton Bird. I'm the co-coordinator of this series, along with my colleague, Dan Buckvich. We're now in the 20th year of this series of presentations by faculty, postdocs, grad students, visiting scholars, and others, speaking about their teaching, research, creative activity, outreach and extension activities. And before introducing today's guest, let me make a pitch for next semester. I'm hoping that if you or a colleague or a friend are interested in presenting next semester, that you will submit a proposal. We would be thrilled to have proposals. I've just saying to Dean Parrella earlier, I've got 6 so far with 9 or 10 other slots to fill. So we would be delighted to have that. Before introducing today's guest, let me tell you about next week. We'll be hearing from Professor Caitlin Cieslik-Miskimen from the School of Journalism and Mass Media. We'll be speaking about newspapers in the American West, some of her research in media history, and that will be the final presentation of the fall semester. We will start again in January on the 19th in a virtual format, the day after Martin Luther King Day. And so mark your calendars for that and look forward to having you join us then. I'm just looking at my notes from earlier in 2020, and Professor Parrella spoke to us about pollinators in peril back in January of this year. It seems long ago in a galaxy far, far away, but we're delighted that he could be with us today to catch us up on what's happening with CAFÉ, the Center for Agriculture, Food, and Environment. So please welcome Michael Parrella, the Dean of the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. And Dean Parrella, I'll let you go ahead and share your screen and introduce your topic.
Okay, we can all see that?
Yes, we can.
We're good to go. Okay, so I'd like to thank Kenton for the opportunity to present this information in this venue. And this is actually probably the 3rd time that I've given or I've been involved in presentations about CAFÉ to the university community. The first one really was when President Saban had those presidential breakfasts. We had a presentation about CAFÉ. I was involved in that, Janet Nelson, Brian Foisey. And the idea there, sort of introducing the concept to campus leadership. That was followed by a second presentation that was geared more towards faculty on the campus, because we really need to reach faculty to get them to understand the true potential of CAFÉ. I think I've also given presentations over in the law school. I've done it for Larry Stauffer in the College of Engineering for his leadership group. And what I want to say is that if there's interest in having a presentation about CAFÉ going forward to any number of different groups, I would really be pleased to do that. The more people know about it, I think the better, because I think it represents an enormous potential for the University of Idaho. It is indeed a transformational project. So with that, I'm going to get right into the slides. I'm going to give you an overview of CAFÉ and a little bit of historical perspective. I just have one slide on that. I think that's kind of old news, but it's important to know where we have come from. And then the reason for this presentation today is to give you a status update. We are moving forward very aggressively with CAFÉ. We do expect to start dairy construction next year. So in that sense, it is going to become real. And again, making sure people understand the potential that CAFÉ offers for the campus. That is a thrust of this presentation, and hopefully it's something that I can impart to you. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I guess I'm trying to get into, let's see what I want to do. Success. Okay, so I'm going to give an overview of CAFÉ a little bit of a status update. Again, I think we're making great progress. And a big part of the presentation today is to talk about CAFÉ being much broader than agriculture and the dairy industry. I guess that's that's probably the biggest take-home message. And so I think you'll see that as I go through this presentation. I want to talk about CAFÉ's potential short and long-term impact on the University of Idaho, and then obviously opportunities for campus involvement in CAFÉ. So that's the thrust. And there's three ways for the campus to get involved. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but I think it's important to make these points because I'll make them again and again as I go through this presentation. The first clearly is a teaching opportunity for the campus to be more effective at reaching students in Southern Idaho. That's a huge part of what CAFÉ is. I think it's perhaps the greatest underrepresented part, and people have to recognize that and hopefully embrace it as we move forward. The second part is really the discovery, kind of the outreach, the presence of the University of Idaho in Southern Idaho. Yeah, there is a tremendous opportunity to tell our story more effectively from a university perspective and from a college perspective. So again, I will talk about that. And then of course, there's the research connections as well. So it seems like there's more focus on the research perhaps than any other aspect, because I think that is huge with tremendous potential. But again, I think it's that recognition that sort of the presence idea, telling our story, and then obviously there's a teaching connection as well. So those are three things that I will amplify as I go through this. And then my hope is we talk about the next steps in the sense of where do we go from here? Now, obviously, on this slide, I talk about CAFÉ being broader than agriculture and the dairy industry. So I'm going to maybe contradict myself a little bit and talk about the dairy industry in the state. I think it's important to do this. And obviously, the dairy industry is really the reason for the genesis of CAFÉ. The dairy industry, we have increased, I think 15 years ago, we were about let's say the 20th largest milk producing state. Today, we are the third largest. So there has been a transformation in Idaho that has been really led by that dairy industry. And as the dairy industry increases, so agriculture changes as well to address the dairy industry. So in that sense, there's some real needs here. And I think people recognize that agriculture in Idaho is about 30% of our economy is based on agriculture. And a huge part of that is based on the dairy industry and on the food processing side of dairy. And that's pretty much cheese and that's yogurt, right? So those are huge components. It makes sense that CAFÉ started with the dairy industry, but again, we have expanded it dramatically. And I will say this now, and I may say it again as I go through this presentation. So CAFÉ started as an entity to support agriculture, to support the dairy industry. But I think it's morphed into something much larger and much more important for the University of Idaho. So I will maintain that who is CAFÉ more important for? Is it more important for the dairy industry or is it more important for the University of Idaho? And basically I'll let you decide, but I think it's critical for both moving forward. So again, I think that's a huge point. I'll make that again and again. And just to look at the slide in some detail, you can see we have over 600,000 milk cows, 430 dairies. And where are those dairies located? There's the Magic Valley, you see the Treasure Valley, you see Eastern Idaho. The vast majority of cows and milk production basically is in the Magic Valley. You can see the number of dairies and then the number of cows per dairy, right? Well over 1,500 cows. And again, our dairy in Southern Idaho will have 2,000 cows. The reason for that size is to sort of mimic, what our dairy producers have in their production facilities. So the research done basically at CAFÉ can be more or less directly extrapolated to those dairy production systems. And then of course it is staggering, right? Idaho milk production on that lower right-hand bar, we produce 15 billion pounds of milk a year, which is a staggering amount of dairy production. So again, hugely important for the state of Idaho. Looking at the kind of the beginning of CAFÉ, I'm sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. There we go. CAFÉ really began in 2009. Obviously, we had some serious financial collapse at that time. So basically it went away, but it began as INCLES, right? It began as the Idaho National Center for Livestock and Environmental Studies. So that was in 2009. And again, because of the financial problems, that kind of fell apart. It was reimagined in 2014 when President Stavin became president of the university. He wanted to bring that back, basically. And so it was really being moved forward. And at that time, our Office of Research and Economic Development was in charge of CAFÉ, but then they changed the name. They changed it to WIDE, which actually stood for the Western Initiative for the Dairy Environment. So again, that was in 2014. Then a seminal thing happened in 2017 that was absolutely huge. The state appropriated $10 million in support of CAFÉ. And that was really, and I was at that meeting with Governor Otter, and Brad Little was there as well. We had the two co-chairs of JFAC, basically. And Maxine Bell was a huge proponent from Jerome County, Sean Keel from up north as well. And they really pushed for that. I mean, it was an incredible meeting, but the state agreed to put $10 million into the permanent building fund in support of CAFÉ. And that really put it on the map. In other words, we had some substance and we could move forward from there. So in the summer of 2017, President Stavin asked me to lead the charge for CAFÉ. And I have been a passionate supporter of this entity for cows and for the university pretty much ever since. And so I really have been pushing it as much as I possibly can, trying to elevate awareness and trying to bring the different pieces of CAFÉ together. And we considerably expanded it as well. We changed the name to the Center for Ag, Food, and the Environment in 2018. And then I think in 2019, another significant fact took place, and that was the fact that the state released the $10 million to the University of Idaho. And I think there are two people responsible for that, probably more, but certainly Tony Broyles and President Green, working with the Permanent Building Fund, got that money released. And that was really based on the fact that we had raised sort of an equivalent amount of money so we could justify that release to the university. In the process here over the past few years, we have sold some ag-related property that the university basically owned. We have hired a project manager that is pretty much on site now. And we've used funds from stakeholders from the university and then from the state. We've purchased sites for the research dairy in Rupert, which is in Minidoka County, and the Discovery Center, which basically is in Jerome. So that is the current sort of physical status of CAFÉ. So again, we're moving very, very aggressively with all of these different components. And again, that'll make up the bulk of my presentation. So currently we are actively fundraising, and we probably never will be done fundraising for CAFÉ. We have engaged two Idaho firms for design and build. Basically, they have designed the dairy completely, so we know what it's going to look like. We know what the cost is going to be, and we're optimistic that we can approach the State Board of Education in the spring of next year to initiate that construction. We have also, at the same time, connected to CAFÉ, what we're calling an agronomic demonstration farm. So it's a 640-acre facility that will actually be a 50-year experiment that will be looking at sustainability and regenerative agriculture in the Magic Valley over the next 50 years. So I'm going to talk about water. I'm going to talk about the Snake River, and I hope I can bring you back to that comment about this large sort of sustainability initiative that is related to dairy, but it actually stands on its own just in terms of looking at sustainability of agricultural production in southern Idaho. And we have already moved forward with baseline research. So we're already doing research at the Rupert site, even though we don't have any cows present. And again, I'll elaborate on that a little bit more as I go through this. Another key part of CAFÉ is what we call the CAFÉ Discovery Center. And this is where we have an opportunity to teach everyone about where food comes from in Idaho. That's part of it, but it also provides an opportunity for the college, for all the colleges to tell their story. It's about engagement, it's about presence, it's about reaching legislators, the lay public, and K through 12, which is huge. So, and that is where we have that major connection basically from an outreach extension perspective, and there's a major teaching connection to that as well. And then the final piece of CAFÉ really is focused on teaching. So we're looking at, you know, major collaborations now that go beyond just transfer students. I guess that's a huge point. Looking at collaborating with the College of Southern Idaho, the College of Western Idaho, the College of Eastern Idaho, and then also BYUI in Rexburg. So again, part of it is to look at, you know, these 2+2 arrangements with transfer students, but we need more than that. And so we're exploring more 4-year degrees with these community colleges, and that is moving forward as well. And I'll kind of end my presentation focusing on that, because that is where I think there are major touch points for all the academic entities that we have on this campus. Excuse me for a second here. So these are the 5 components of CAFÉ that I just talked about sort of schematically. On the left-hand side, you see just a small little rendition of what the research dairy might look like. There is a robotic rotary milking parlor there that'll milk 60 cows at one time. And the point I want to make here is, if you've never been on a modern dairy, you have no idea the high tech that is associated with these dairies. Some of them have, the only thing I can think of that's analogous is the control tower from an airport rising up in the center of these rotary milking parlors, which is the control center when they control the operations. There's a desperate need. So this industry, you know, they need animal scientists and people to understand animal husbandry and milk, but they also need engineers and they need computer scientists. I mean, this is high tech, and I don't think people understand that there's a tremendous need for these for educated students, both graduate and undergraduate, to reinforce these industries that go beyond what the College of Ag and Life Sciences can produce. So I think there are tremendous touch points here from an educational perspective and better service to the industry that goes way beyond what cows can actually do. The center panel there is one of our central pivot sites. It's 600, well, the total acreage is 640 acres, but what you see on this central pivot are these blue dots, right? And each one of those blue dots represents a sampling site where we are developing baseline data, understanding the depth of the soil structure, the microbial components. So we have a baseline of information on which we will then build the sustainable rotation and sort of, I guess, fertilizer nutrient management programs that will go forward in the Magic Valley. So this is where that 50-year experiment will take place. And again, water is a key part of what we'll be doing here, and I'll talk more about that as I go forward. On the right-hand side, that little circle, and I'll talk about more about this as I go through the presentation, is sort of a rendition of what the Discovery Center will look like. We have purchased property. We own 6 acres at the crossroads of 93 and 84 in Jerome County. I want to credit Barbara Petty and a group of faculty and stakeholders that basically they visited the Sage Center in Oregon, for those that are familiar with that. They visited the Tillamook Creamery, also in Oregon, and they visited the agritourism dairy site in Indiana, which is the Fair Oaks Dairy, just to get some insight into what those entities are doing, and that informed them when we put together the design basically for the Discovery Center. So that is moving forward as well. And then basically as we go down to the next circle there, it's about food processing technology. And what Idaho is known for is our food processing industry. We don't have enough people really to satisfy a fresh market product that we produce. So pretty much we are food processing from a dairy perspective. And when you think about potatoes, for example, you know, a lot of our potatoes are for storage and then obviously for French fries. So food processing is huge. So there's touch points then for us from a food science perspective from the University of Idaho and cows and beyond, other aspects of the campus, combining more effectively with what the College of Southern Idaho is doing. And I'll talk more about that. And that's both from a research and from an educational perspective. And that gets me into the final little circle there, which is about, more 2+2 programs. And you can see the puzzle pieces, University of Idaho coming together with the College of Southern Idaho. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just transfer students. We can bring in some of the other community colleges. We can bring BYUI into the mix as well. A lot of workforce development, retraining the existing workforce. Tremendous opportunity again for us to have much greater presence and access to students and to this industry in the southern part of the state. Okay, a transformational project for the U of I, and I'm gonna read this. I channeled my inner Randy Olson. If people remember Randy, when he came to campus, he is the author of Houston, We Have a Narrative, and he has put forward this kind of and, but, therefore, ABT way of communication. So I've taken a page from his book and I put this slide together. So I'm going to go through this very quickly because I think, from my perspective, this is perhaps the seminal part of this presentation. So as Idaho's land grant flagship university, University of Idaho has been serving the state for more than 120 years through teaching, research, and outreach. And it's basically dedicated to improving the lives of all Idahoans. And we have produced more than 120,000 graduates. So despite our impressive track record, we struggle to stay relevant as a destination campus for students. And why is that? And you all know why, right? We are located too far away from population centers in the state. We have a low go-on rate in Idaho, number of high school students go on to college. We have many place-bound students in the state that make it difficult for them. They may need an education or recognize the need. They don't want to come north. And obviously, we're seeing increased competition from other schools, both within the state and out of state. And we all know, basically, that we have this undergraduate cliff coming in 2025. There is going to be fewer high school students across the country that are going to want to go on to college. There's going to be intense scramble competition for those students basically across the United States. So that is coming. We know that's coming. Right? So how are we as a university going to basically try to address that issue? And I would say that CAFÉ is a mechanism for us to do that. I think we're going to need a better way to basically try and communicate with and make students in Southern Idaho recognize what we're doing and that we're a good place for them to go for an education. And right now we're challenged to do that. And I think obviously we need to recognize that there's potential with population growth down there in Southern Idaho. So again, I think CAFÉ is a mechanism for that. So again, let's see, to address these issues that I'm talking about, there's various proposals, right, that have been made. A lot of what we're doing, obviously the President Green focused on, better telling our story, just greater visibility. There's those things going on certainly in Southern Idaho. And then we're also, trying to further distinguish ourselves from other universities, both in the South and in neighboring states. So I think, these things should take place. We need to take advantage of every opportunity we have. But again, I don't think that's going to be enough. We need something transformational. And I think CAFÉ has that potential. So CAFÉ is designed to address these concerns. And so what is CAFÉ going to do? It's going to offer a major physical facility to address sustainability issues that are critical to agriculture and downstream industries. So it's agriculture, but what I just talked about was how important agriculture is to Idaho. And so in that sense, I without a doubt, I feel there is something in CAFÉ for every Idahoan, and that is a strong economy in the state. So a big part of CAFÉ is focusing on economic development in rural communities. I think that's huge. We're looking at providing direct engagement and opportunities for K-12 and the lay public. And then the idea that CAFÉ is going to be an economic engine and as a pathway for increased research support that will assist our move to R1 status. I think that will happen with CAFÉ as well. And then the idea with respect to students, I think is going to provide increased opportunity for all colleges to more effectively recruit undergraduates, transfer students, and graduate students. So one thing I have difficulty with, and is the idea that we need greater presence in southern Idaho. And I say that because when I look at what we're doing as a college, right? So this is the Agriculture Research and Extension Service, our profile statewide. And you can see we're in Sandpoint, we're in Moscow, we're in Salmon, we're in Parma, in Caldwell, in Twin Falls, Aberdeen. I mean, I think you know all of these. We basically have the 4 extension districts. We have 130 faculty off campus at 42 of the 44 county offices, 9 research and extension centers. And when I think about this effort, we've been doing this for more than 100 years. Some of our research and extension centers are that old, so they're embedded in the community. They're well known, and it's almost inconceivable to me to when I look at this, and then you say we need a greater presence in southern Idaho. So I have trouble sort of reconciling that. But regardless, there is no question that this is not sufficient. We should certainly double down, invest more in these, make sure that they get out and they do more awareness and outreach, and so they're recognized. I think we need to do more of that. And certainly we have Idaho National Lab in Idaho Falls. We have Moss, and CNR has that in Caldwell, or in the basically by Lake Payette there. There's a Boise Water Center, right? There's other efforts statewide to give us better recognition in the South. And again, we should double down on all of that. But we've been there, we have done that, we've done that experiment, and it hasn't worked. We need something else. And that's why, I'm looking at CAFÉ as being something transformational that energize this and basically move our presence and our recognition basically to the next level. Now that brings me to a little discussion about population growth in the state. Maybe no one needs a tutorial here. This is a real quick slide just showing where that growth is going to be. We are expected to go to, basically, what is it there? By 2029, almost 2 million people. Most of the growth basically in southern, I'll just say in general, in southern, in the southern part of the state. And then if we, amplify that a little bit more, if you look at that panel, I guess, to the right, and I highlighted the 2 cities, the fastest growing cities in the US, we have Meridian and Nampa. I mean, it's just amazing. So granted, that's in the Treasure Valley, but again, I think CAFÉ will have an impact there as well. And then of course, if you go to the left-hand side of that slide and drop down to the bottom line, the population of Twin Falls reached a milestone in 2019, one of 8 cities in Idaho with more than 50,000 people. So there is going to be population growth. We are going to see increases in numbers down there and increase in students. So I think we need to have a plan going forward of how we're going to capture those students when they are eligible for college, how we're going to compete with existing institutions, both in the state and externally. And again, I think CAFÉ is a potential vehicle for that. Just speaking about that population increase, again, we're the ninth fastest growing state in terms of population in the country, which is remarkable. Obviously, we started with not too many people, so obviously percentage-wise, we're up there, but we are going to see an increase. And when I think about CAFÉ and I think about water and I think about this university, water is central to CAFÉ. Insufficient water supply to support urban development, natural resources, and agriculture. And I'll talk more about that as I go through this presentation. And then it's about economic development and expansion in rural communities. CAFÉ is all about that. And when I think about the education of students, both undergraduate and graduate, the industries down in southern Idaho are screaming for educated students. They do not have enough to satisfy their needs, and they have difficulty recruiting students from out of the state. And I put down here a little bit of information that came from Jerome 2020, which is the Economic Development Agency in Jerome County, that we are working very, very closely with respect to CAFÉ. And so you can see the breakdown of sort of the educational status. And again, the point here, and actually they look at this with great pride, they have a ways to go. But again, the need for educated students to reinforce the workforce that's needed down there is huge. So when we think about Twin Falls, and when I think about Twin Falls, I think about it as the Silicon Valley of food. And I put a URL there if you want to look at that in a little bit more detail, but just reading the center part of the words there. Twin Falls, one of 4 regions in the nation to have been recognized by the U.S. Economic Development Administration as a federal manufacturing community designation in the food category. So food processing, as I've already talked about, is absolutely huge down there in the Magic Valley. And it's not, and obviously it's related to dairy, there's no question. But when we think about potatoes and we think about, basically meat processing, I mean, the food processing aspects are absolutely huge. And these industries are increasing. They're being encouraged to come. There's not enough educated individuals to provide the workforce that industry needs. And I put down a few of the little panels that are on the Drone 2020 website, but you can see some of the food processing that goes on, and then dairy is king, food for thought. And then there is a little panel that they talk about, the contribution of agribusiness to Idaho's Magic Valley economy, which is really by our extension service. Now, the food processing is huge. There's no question. We have a food processing small industry up here. We have a food science program in CALS as well. But basically, we have changed that. So we have restructured the college to better address the food processing industry in Southern Idaho. Many of you know we used to have a bi-state school of food science, which is a combination between U of I and WSU. We had both research programs as well as educating students. We have broken that bi-state school. In a sense, we have dissolved it. We have maintained it from a student perspective. So the accredited programs where our students take courses there, their students take courses here, that we will maintain for at least the next 5 years. But then we've taken the food science faculty, we've merged them in animal and vet science. And, I want to acknowledge Bob Collier for, really being an architect of that. So that's really important. So basically, we're looking at food science now in a little bit of a broader perspective. So we do expect to invest in food science, making food science even stronger than it has been in the past. But the idea here is we need to be more effective at addressing this enormous food processing industry that is basically down in the Magic Valley. And the way it was structured previously, we were not able to do that. So the plan going forward is to move food science, to invest in food science, and to bring more of the components of food science on this campus, perhaps under an institute of sorts, so we can better address what CAFÉ is doing and better integrate with the needs of the food science industry in Southern Idaho. So again, I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through this presentation. And the need for undergraduates goes beyond just food processing. When I think about agriculture, and this slide actually was part of we had a presentation from the Undersecretary of Agriculture. He was our keynote speaker for Ag Days, and he put this slide up. I thought I would share it with you just to speak about the fact that the agricultural industry, there's not enough graduates basically to satisfy job needs in agriculture. So again, that's maybe that's part of the bigger picture, but again, it's the food processing focus that really is why we're shifting this the food science program on the campus. Now, I've alluded to water a little bit here, and obviously, we are moving forward as a campus with we want water to be a theme, and I think with President Green's sort of influence and interacting with Brad as well as Chris and Office of Research and Economic Development, there's the idea now we're going to have a water sustainability initiative, which I think is fantastic. We have tremendous research prowess here in water, and it's got to be, sort of collectively put together and then have a centralized theme moving forward, right? So I think we struggle with that, and we have struggled. And what I want to offer here is a potential for CAFÉ as being a landing site for some of that water sustainability initiative. And I talk about the Idaho Conservation League here a little bit, and I'll talk more about that in the next few slides. I've actually met, myself and Brent Olmsted, we've met with the Idaho Conservation League a number of times talking about CAFÉ, because CAFÉ is all about water and it's all about the Snake River. And the Idaho Conservation League is focused on one thing, and that's restoring the Snake River. So they have a beautiful sort of a map here that's, without exaggeration, is suitable for flaming. This is the Idaho Snake River Plain, about 156, I think, just staggering amount of acreage, certainly associated with this land. And you can see that obviously the Snake River comes into Idaho from Wyoming. You can see it on the left-hand side. And obviously, this is focused on agriculture and the impact of agriculture on the Snake River. You come into Idaho, you can see in the upper right-hand side, there's potatoes and French fries. Let's go down a little bit further. On the lower right, you see J.R. Simplot mining phosphate. We've got central pivot irrigation sites there to the left. We've got harvesting grain crops. If you move up to the center part of the screen, there's the dairy cows. There's Chobani with yogurt. There's some cheese production. To the left there's a can of soda, I think, and those are sugar beets. And so then, of course, we've got salmon as well. One thing this slide does not depict is a burgeoning urban population increase, which is also going to, sort of contribute to the woes of the Snake River. So, the issue here then is, if the University of Idaho, if we're going to address issues affecting the Snake River and trying to restore the Snake River, how are we going to do it? And so basically agriculture is a huge part of that. As I just mentioned, the CAFÉ demonstration farm is focused on a 50-year experiment looking at water and water use efficiency and water discharge and surface water and groundwater contamination and the sustainability and regenerative agriculture moving forward. So what I'm talking about here is that CAFÉ offers a window into how to address these incredibly complex situations. Maybe to amplify this point, maybe some of you have seen this, pretty negative slide that came out in 2014 or article, I should say, and it says it all. Idaho's sewer system is the Snake River. As big ag flourishes, this massive waterway suffers. Some serious implications here, whether these charges are all can be verified in the sense, there's no doubt that agriculture has a role to play. In the middle, or the template on the left, you can see the dairy industry. And on the right is basically runoff from agriculture going into the Snake River. Some huge issues here. So, obviously it's about water, it's about sustainability, it's about urban development, it's about outreach and education, it's about K through 12 and recruiting students, about all these things. But research is a huge part of it. And so what I'm trying to say here is that CAFÉ offers a template for our faculty to do great things, to come together to address their own research programs, what they want to accomplish. Does CAFÉ afford them the opportunity to do that? And can they collaborate in larger, sort of more center grants, I would say, that bring dollars in to support broader programs of which they can be part of? So that's a huge message here. So where is that money going to come from? Maybe some of it will come from within Idaho, but I think there's enormous opportunity at the federal level, and we're going to see more of that going forward. So CAFÉ is all about the future. It's looking to what can be and looking at the potential. And in a sense, I think a lot of that potential can be realized if we all come together. An example is this one panel, and this is USDA, this is the FAR program, FFAR, which is a Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. This is actually a matching program that USDA has. And I just put down, one panel about their RFPs. So it's about water scarcity. It's about irrigation, water use, recovery, groundwater recharge. It's about soil health. It's about the protein challenge. It's about food waste and loss, innovation pathways. There's nutrition. There's My Plate Europe. I mean, all these things. When I look at this, across the top, and I see CAFÉ, and I see what our faculty are capable of, I see a lot of RFPs that can come out that address these issues. And I think with our faculty and with CAFÉ as a backdrop, we will be successful moving forward. So that is a huge message here, but that's only as good as faculty coming together, recognizing what the opportunities are and the potential. Now, I mentioned the presentation that was given by Scott Hutchins, the Undersecretary of Agriculture, and this is his slide. He used this slide during his presentation at Ag Days. It talked about CAFÉ, and this was a proposal, a grant proposal put together primarily by Mark McGuire in Cal's, Director of the Ag Experiment Station, distinguished professor, that basically the proposal was creating a new bioeconomy for dairies to increase nutrient cycling, enhance productivity of crops, and stimulate prosperity in rural America. So AFRI put up $80 million. They had a national program They requested proposals. They were going to fund 8 projects nationally at $10 million a project. This proposal was funded. So it speaks to 2 things. It speaks to the fact that we have faculty that are good enough to compete nationally. And I think one of the reasons this proposal was successful was because its connection to CAFÉ, even though CAFÉ is just really developing. So I want to point to this as a success, and what I think of is only the beginning of a success story. So this is a $10 million award. And again, this is some of the information that Scott Hutchins used in his presentation. There's another huge thing happening at the national level, and a big part. I view my job as the dean is to try and look to the future and try to position this university, and it's not just Cal's, it's the university, to be more successful going forward. So you have to anticipate what may be coming down and then position faculty for success. So that is what CAFÉ is all about. So what is happening nationally and internationally? There is a huge move looking at sort of agriculture from a net zero carbon perspective. It's happening in Europe big time. And if it's happening in Europe, it's happening here as well. So there's a net zero 2050 initiative that basically is focused on the dairy industry. We have the same thing going on in the US. And we do anticipate with an administrative change in Washington with a much greater focus on climate variability, climate change research, net zero as well. We do expect there to be funding that is allocated. So on the right-hand side of this panel, you can see dairy's net zero carbon emissions. This is something that the dairy industry in the United States is pushing. And you can see 1, 2, 3, becoming carbon neutral or better, optimizing water use while minimizing recycling, and number 3, improving water quality by optimizing utilization of manure and nutrients. All those things are exactly what CAFÉ is going to do. So we should be lined up when there's RFPs coming, provided we can pull faculty together with CAFÉ as a backdrop. We should be successful for those dollars. I just want to talk a little bit about the impact of one $10 million grant and what that's going to have to this campus. I put together, on the left-hand side is part of the proposal. You can see the sort of a flow diagram of how things are going to move. But on the right-hand side, what is this $10 million proposal doing? It involves 21 faculty, multiple departments, a lot of faculty from the College of Engineering. We are going to be hiring 4 postdocs, 23 graduate students, 37 undergrads, and 10 field research assistants. That's one proposal that is going to automatically move us on that continuum to R1. So again, think about what can be CAFÉ as a template, funding that's available, and we should be competitive for that funding. The other thing I want to talk about with respect to this AFRI proposal is the technology that's involved. So how do you take manure and basically extract value-added products from manure? And what I wanted to show you what the technologies to be tested. And again, this came out of directly out of the proposal, and you can see the schematic there. And maybe when you're looking at this, you're thinking, well, my goodness, why is that? How is the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences doing this? It looks like this is out of their area of expertise. And so I understand that. I'll also defend faculty. We do have Lee Day Chen doing this kind of work, Eric Coates from engineering, others as well. So we do have that capacity. But the point here is that you're absolutely right. There's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of chemistry here that goes beyond what the College of Ag and Life Sciences can actually deliver. So again, speaking more broadly, this technology, it screams for more participation from other expertise on this campus. We certainly have it. So that's again a message that I'm hoping I'm repeating a theme, but I think it's a really, really important theme. Just moving on with I'm not moving on. I apologize. Let's see. I just had a message come in, so my computer is frozen. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, the crossroads point, and I guess, I apologize for that. Apple ID is coming up, and I can't seem to get rid of that. But so just bear with me here. So this is the 6 acres of property that we have purchased at the crossroads. You can see Highway 93 on the right-hand side. You go south a little bit, and there's Twin Falls not too far away. This is a schematic of what that Discovery Center will look like, the red building, and there are some buses there. Basically, that's the Discovery Center. We're going to tell the story about where food comes from in Idaho, but it also gives the university an opportunity to tell its story, all the colleges, and then obviously from a K through 12 outreach perspective, legislature, the lay public, just the idea of having greater presence. We also anticipate having classrooms and dormitories here from an educational perspective as well. So again, I think this is an opportunity for this is a touch point for all the colleges to get involved in this aspect of CAFÉ, and I'm hoping there are other opportunities as well. So what I want to do now is go through a few panels and do it pretty quickly here and talk about what I think might be the interaction points for the other colleges on the campus. This information, I've met with most of the deans, both historically and very recently. So I just tried to put together some touch points just to think about. And again, these are maybe just initial discussions about where there are these potential points of interaction. So with education, health, and human sciences, the workforce development, career technical training, and you can read these as well as I can say them, public health and food security, we do expect the Discovery site to be a site for agritourism, and there's opportunities for the college there. K through 12 education, maybe reaching out with math and science literacy before students even approach the university. There's other aspects as well. The College of Law. When I think about, there's so many touch points there. I think it's incredible. Think about water and water law. I think about irrigation, the issues around immigration, and immigration related to CAFÉ, yes, but bigger issues related to agriculture more broadly. And I talked about water. We have tremendous strength in the College of Law with respect to water. And water is not just about being more efficient delivering water to agricultural crops. It's about water allocation. It's about water law, water scarcity, water all these issues that clearly bring the law school into play. There's a water bank and legal status, land use issues surrounding agriculture. And it was wonderful this morning. I participated in the dean's meeting with one of the candidates for the dean of the School of Law and College of Law. And he talked about organic standards, which I thought was incredible. And obviously he scored a few points with me because I have organic standards already on this profile. Engineering already heavily involved in CAFÉ. They're part of that AFRI sustainability project, value-added products from the newer. And the point I want to make about CAFÉ, it is heavy data. It is big data. There's no question. It's sensor-centric. We're going to have sensors for animals and animal health, basically. We're going to have sensors from an environmental perspective and sensors from a soil health perspective as well. This is going to require the acquisition of big data transmitted remotely. We're going to be able to have to store that data, be able to analyze it. So we're already talking with the Northwest Knowledge Network here. They're involved in this project. So obviously there's tremendous opportunity there as well. And obviously agriculture in general, CAFÉ, it's all about precision agriculture. How we deliver products to agriculture, water, fertilizer, and how we monitor both physical and biological parameters associated with agricultural production. College of Art and Architecture, moving on. And I talked to Shauna about this, and she discussed that, the difficulty that college has in terms of getting recognition and presence down in basically southern Idaho and southeastern Idaho. And again, I think this is afford an opportunity. Urban planning and design for rural communities, a master plan for growth. They have a facilities managers program in the college. And I think the industry, hiring people is going to need these facilities managers. She mentioned a little bit about interior design. Apparently BYUI has stopped their interior design program. So any students in southern Idaho that are interested in interior design, go to Utah State. I think we need to change that. I think CAFÉ is a mechanism to do that. And then of course there's the Center for Resilient Communities that Lil is running. And obviously that's in southern Idaho, southeastern Idaho. We need more touch points with her as well, since that's a program where there is considerable overlap. College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences, quickly, workplace safety, organizational science, criminology. College of Natural Resources, we already interact quite a bit with them. the final panel is really, the final line there. We talk about Rinker Rock Creek Ranch. We're interacting with them extensively, environmental science education, and I think water and the Snake River, what I just talked about. I think there's plenty of opportunity for the faculty in the College of Natural Resources to participate. And again, the idea here is to get people to think bigger, to think what can be, right? And I think that there's exciting opportunities for basically for the university broadly. This was a panel that was actually put up by Scott Hutchins, the Undersecretary of Agriculture, talking about our involvement, the university, with ARS's long-term agro-system research network, right? The LTAR network. We're already involved with them, but the vision here is can we bring CAFÉ into this LTAR network? If we can do that, then there's automatically federal funding that comes to support the program. And then of course, we have the Rinker Rock Creek Ranch as well, that obviously we're partnering with CNR. Can that eventually morph into an LTER, which is actually an NSF funded long-term ecological research network? Can that become part of that sort of nationwide network? And all of this speaks to bringing more money into the state to fund these facilities, but giving us recognition that we're a player on the national stage. And that is a big part of what I think Rinker and what I think basically CAFÉ can do. College of Science and WWAMI, it's precision health, precision agriculture. Shirley Lockhart, the Center of Health and the Human Ecosystem, put together a COBRI grant that I thought was incredible, tried to marry precision health and precision agriculture for a variety of reasons, timing being a big one that really didn't move forward, but I think the concept is real and I think it's exciting. There's opportunities to collaborate with genomics, animal genomics, microbial genomics, tremendous opportunity there, focus on soil and animal health. I already talked about, big data, and how we're going to analyze that. There's connections there. Antibiotic resistance, right, where there's touch points across many programs in cows and the College of Science and others. I think there's opportunities for collaboration there, looking at animals and humans basically, and also microbes. And then, the last one I want to mention here that I didn't touch on is food processing related to water. So when you think about Chobani and Jerome cheese, Glambia, these huge food processing facilities in Twin Falls, what are their limitations? What are they facing? They're facing enormous water shortages. They no longer can access water. So basically they have cow water, right? They extract a lot of water when they make cheese and things. They're trying to reuse that water. There's huge issues there. And then eventually they discharge that water, right? So it's very difficult for them to meet the requirements of discharge. So we've had Greg Moeller with our Mean Clean Water machine down there working with Jerome cheese, working with Chobani as well, trying to see if some of that technology can assist in that huge issue for them. So when you think about sustainability and water, don't just think about the natural environment, think about the urban community and think about the food processing industry, because these are huge issues that food processing industry is facing. So the last one I want to mention is College of Business and Economics. There's tremendous potential. Again, just looking to the future, we expect there to be an RFP that's going to come down from basically the legislature at the federal level for a dairy business innovation center. And we think we can be competitive for it with respect to CAFÉ. I'm going to talk more about that, but if we can do something like that, again, it's capitalizing on what CAFÉ represents, and it's a regional thing. It would really move the needle from an agribusiness connection for CAFÉ. And then we have the ag commodity risk management, supply chain, sort of an analysis. That's a small part of the Barker trading program. And I want to talk about that as well. Before I move into that, I just have a panel here about precision nutrition. And this is what's happening at the federal level, right? So there's going to be RFPs associated with this. So Shirley Lockhart and that COBRI grant, they were maybe ahead of the curve, but this is coming, right? So, investigate the role of dietary patterns and behaviors of optimal health, to define the role of nutrition across the lifespan. I think about what Family and Consumer Sciences is doing, and this lines up perfectly. If there's a connection to CAFÉ, even better, right? So again, I think there's so much opportunity. We have the talent, we have the people. We'll have CAFÉ as a template to move some of this forward. So this is a panel just talking about what's happening at the federal level, that the Agricultural Marketing Service, right, is going to and you make your own future as well. So we are trying to work at the federal level with our congressmen, and this involves Carolyn Fuller, Chris Nomura, Brad Ritz as well, working with our congressional delegation to try and change the wording in an appropriation. So we basically have money that the Agricultural Marketing Service will put into an RFP for a dairy business innovation center out west. So not an earmark, but just the opportunity to compete for a center like that. And I think with CAFÉ as a backdrop, I think we'll have a good potential to be successful. And so, that we expect to move forward. And then I'm almost done here. So, we have that tremendous Barker training program. There's a connection between College of Ag and CBE through our Ag Commodity Risk Management program. And so this is a tremendous relationship. And it's, we're actually, as we speak now, we are hiring an endowed chair, the first one in the college, focused on Ag Commodity Risk Management. And that's being funded by the Idaho Wheat Commission, but it's all about broadly training students in the workforce in terms of how you market your commodities, how you hedge, and how you risk. And so that's huge, not only for wheat, it's huge for dairy as well. So there's a tremendous touch point there for business and for cows in terms of the business side of what CAFÉ can be. And so this is moving forward, primarily with the College of Southern Idaho. We're building on those 2+2 arrangements we already have, but is there more than that? Is there a BS degree? Is there more online course offerings we can have? Can we build a minor in agribusiness? Can we have a Ag Commodity Risk Management certificate program down there? Again, going beyond just 2+2 transfer students, so thinking more broadly and partnering with the College of Southern Idaho. Okay, the end of the presentation. Next steps. Try to pull faculty together around specific themes. Maybe antibiotic resistance is one of them, to discuss ongoing projects and using CAFÉ as a launching point, right? So that's a big part of it. There's larger research proposals to put together to address specifics of an RFP. Basically, we need faculty to lead that. The deans, we can't do that. But again, we have faculty that I'm hoping will step up and will take charge. The rest of it, you can read through it, trying to deal more effectively with Office of Research and Economic Development and helping us better define the research profiles, right, that I've already talked about. The potential of the FFAR proposal, looking at net zero, that's one. So we need that sort of leadership more broadly on the campus rather than just coming from cows. Because maybe I've said this is not a cows initiative. This is a University of Idaho initiative, right? So we have taken it as far as we can. We need, the rest of the campus basically to step up, and that is happening. And that's a big part of what this presentation is about. We're hoping to form an Institute of Food Science and Technology, bringing in engineering, bringing in College of Science, more effectively integrating other aspects of the college into a broader program of food science that looks at all aspects of food science, but focuses south and looks at the food processing industry in basically southern Idaho. Obviously, that Dairy Business Innovation Center that I talked about, that's something else we are pursuing. And then finally, have the vision to think that we can be successful with CAFÉ as an LTAR and potentially at Rinker Rock Creek Ranch as an LTER. So if there are interested faculty that want to be part, we have all these different advisory committees for all these different groups. If you're at all interested in learning more or becoming part of the process, this project cannot be successful without your participation. So please step up, and Rhonda's name is there. Just basically tell her you're interested and maybe where you're coming from, and we will slot you into the appropriate place. And I think I started this presentation by saying that I've given just a staggering amount of CAFÉ presentations. I am not done by any stretch. If there are people that want, this presentation, or you want maybe more specifics about a certain area of CAFÉ, I am happy to talk about that. We need to elevate the awareness. I want more people talking about CAFÉ, because as I said earlier, I view, CAFÉ as being a vehicle to move this university forward. And I think we do need this vehicle. So maybe I will end my presentation there and thank Kenton for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation. So if there are questions or we can move on. So Ken, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Parrella, for that interesting and informative presentation. Your enthusiasm for CAFÉ is contagious, and we had more than 100 people watching today, and I hope some of them will follow up. We do have a couple of questions in chat, and so if you don't mind sticking around a little bit past our normal 1:30 cutoff, I would relay those questions to you. First, from Timothy Link, who apologizes for leaving for another meeting. He wonders if anyone is thinking about pursuing an NSF major research infrastructure proposal to fully instrument CAFÉ as an integrated instrument. He thinks that could be packaged as such and worth exploring.
So yeah, so I thank Tim for that. Obviously, that's what we're looking for. Ideas like that obviously transcend the college, that speak more broadly. And so I'm hoping that Chris Nomura and Brad Ritz, I assume they're on this call, that I think that's where their interest is moving big projects like that forward. So that's a fantastic idea. Obviously, it's things like that really will make CAFÉ successful.
There was an earlier question that perhaps you might have already addressed, but we're wondering if ISU and Boise State and the other parts of Idaho's higher education system are involved, or is this an exclusively U of Idaho proposal?
So, what we ended up doing, and this was really President Staben's idea, we used to call this the University of Idaho Center for Ag, Food, and the Environment. So we dropped the university from the name. So really it's the Idaho Center for Ag, Food, and the Environment. And the reason for that was to, not take ownership. Obviously we own it, we're driving it, but the idea is it's not going to be successful unless there's more regional partnerships, right? And that means, specifically looking at other partner universities. So, the interaction with Idaho State has been minimal. I think there's opportunities to bring them into the discussion, and certainly that can happen. We have had discussion with Boise State. We do have the Tech Help program that's actually through the College of Engineering, and we have several faculty that have been hired through the Tech Help program. So in a sense, Tech Help provides half the salary. We provide the other half. We have several faculty that are involved in the area of food safety that focus on both dairy and the broad food processing industry. So there's a connection to Boise State. And again, I think that connection, I think there's more opportunities for Boise State to get involved. And then BYU-I as well, the connection there. Maybe there's some people on the call. So we did go with about 20 faculty, this is 2 years ago now, down to BYU-I, where I know Ginger Carney was part of that mix as well. I think Jerry McMurtry as well from the Graduate College. Just to interact with them and talk about the potential for interaction more broadly than CAFÉ. But the touch point for CAFÉ is clearly the dairy internships for students, huge food processing component connectivity there too. So we expect BYU-I to be a partner in this moving forward as well.
So Dean Parrella, I'm wondering, do any of the other major dairy producing states have a similar facility that might be a model, or are there some opportunities for collaboration with other universities or other dairy research centers?
So yeah, no, thank you for that question. So I think maybe there are sort of I could define this a little bit more effectively. We're going to have a 2,000 cow research dairy that's connected to basically 1,200 acres that will be a sustainable ag demonstration farm. We're going to be linking animal agriculture to plant agriculture and bringing in precision health as well. Looking at long-term sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture moving forward. There is not a project or a program like that anywhere in the United States. So when I say that it's unique, basically I feel that with that as a template and using that as a backdrop, and our faculty apply for grants, then I think it's automatic. It's got to be a good proposal. It's got to be competitive. But I think having that backdrop with this unique facility is going to sort of score a few more points when a project or a proposal like that is scored, right? So that's a big part of it. So there are other research facilities. Certainly Wisconsin, has something that's similar, a bit on a smaller scale. but we are, looking at this facility as being unique, and certainly, partnering with our surrounding institutions. I mean, there's discussions there. If we end up with a dairy business innovation center, it's going to have to be regional. We're not going to get that if it's just Idaho. We're going to have to involve Utah. We're going to have to involve, obviously, WSU, Oregon State as well. So I think, the plan moving forward is for this to be an entity that we can be proud of as a university, but has regional impact as well. And we're going to need those partners to make it successful.
We have a question from Lisa, who is wondering whether you or the state foresee any threat from the non-dairy milk industry. I've been seeing a lot of ads for oat milk, and wondering if these non-dairy alternatives might affect how you move forward with this massive mega dairy.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Actually, I anticipated that question coming too. So first off, I think everybody on this that's listening in needs to drink milk, right, from cows. So I'll say that to support the economy of Idaho. So please do that. And obviously, I'm half joking there. I think reality is that the alternative milk, almond milk and the like, are still a very, very small part of dairy consumption nationwide. So I don't want to say it. I mean, it's the same thing with artificial meat. Is that a threat to the livestock industry in the United States? And in a sense, I mean, there's a lot of media blitz about that, but I think reality is it's a small part of the total industry. I don't want to say the industry isn't concerned about that. I think they are, but I think we're still going to see dairy and sort of livestock. They're going to be drivers for our economy moving forward. We're actually going to see an increase in both meat consumption and dairy consumption moving forward. At least those are the projections, both in the United States and globally.
We have time for one more question. If there's someone in the audience that would like to either put a question in chat or unmute yourself and ask it directly. Well, as those of you who attend university faculty meetings know, that I always have a question for the speaker. So Dean Parrella, just talk a little bit about what this has meant to you personally. What have been the biggest challenges to overcome, and what have been the biggest rewards to get the project to this point?
Thanks for that question. I may take too long to answer that. So obviously, I didn't ask to lead CAFÉ. So President Staben came to me and asked me to lead it. So if he does that, and then obviously getting into the details of that, I recognized, the potential for CAFÉ from day one, in a sense. And so what we did with CAFÉ, we expanded it from that, the Ingalls and the wide. There's always been sort of an environmental focus, but we've expanded that in a major way. So we brought that demonstration farm and that ag component, linking animal agriculture, to plant agriculture, and then obviously there's the water issue as well, bringing that, and then bringing the huge piece is bringing the food processing component in, because that was not part of the original intent when Ingalls and Wide was put together. And then the final piece is the idea that can we use CAFÉ as a vehicle to increase our presence and visibility with respect to undergraduates, our ability to recruit students in Southern Idaho. And I think that, so we can't do that by ourselves. We have to partner with our community colleges, right? Because they are there. And so it seems to me that, that's what drove me. The more I thought about CAFÉ, and absolutely, many people know I'm from California, so I came into this position. I love this college. I love this university, and I wanted to be successful. It's clear that the limitations that we face as a university, they've been with us for some time, and they're not going to go away. They're only going to increase. So the idea that, we have whatever plan we have, we haven't been successful up until this point. We need something a bit more, I'll say bolder, if that's a word, something that really energizes, that really puts us on the map, not just in Southern Idaho, but puts us on the map regionally and nationally. And I look at CAFÉ as being an opportunity to do that. So it's almost to the point where what is CAFÉ not going to do, right? There's water, there's antibiotic resistance, there's sustainability, there's education, there's so much to it. It can almost be, that's a limitation in a sense. It can almost be anything you want it to be, but I like it that way. Let's have faculty step up and what do you want? Or what programs do you think will work down here? The more we can get that sort of input, the better. And then the thing that's been the most satisfying for me is the response that we have gotten. I think where we talk about CAFÉ, there's excitement down there. I think in Southern Idaho, I think, the president has felt that when he has gone out and talked to stakeholders, in Twin Falls and Jerome County and the Magic Valley, they're excited about what CAFÉ is going to bring to that community, if you will. And Jerome 2020, that economic development agency, they're looking at bringing more business, more food processing, et cetera, into Jerome County. And they look at CAFÉ as being a vehicle that's going to help them bring, because we're going to have the education from the University of Idaho present there. We're going to have that as something to attract. But then it's the workforce training, it's the student training that we're going to be doing there and partnering with the College of Southern Idaho that these industries are going to need. So it's been that, and then raising the funds. It's both satisfying and frustrating. Getting money at any time, almost anywhere, is a challenge. I think it's been magnified now that we're in this COVID. We just can't get out and visit with people, and that's been a challenge. So there are still challenges with CAFÉ. There's no question about that. But at the same time, I just think there's so much potential there, and I think we can use that as a vehicle to move this forward. And we're already a great university. I think we can be even greater. So thank you for that question.
Your call for participation from across the university embodies the spirit of interdisciplinarity that this colloquium was founded on. And I think Malcolm Renfrew, if he were with us today, would be both impressed and inspired. So thank you for that message today. Before we let you go, Dean Parrella, I'd like to invite our audience to turn on your cameras and join in a silent round of applause. And let our speaker see the audience. It's great to see so many familiar faces of people from across Idaho who are with us today. And I hope that you'll follow up in the ways that Dean Parrella has invited. And I hope that you'll join us next Tuesday for the final presentation of the fall semester, Tuesday, December 8th, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time on the same video link. And finally, several people have asked about whether today's presentation will be recorded. It is indeed being recorded, and it will be posted later today or first thing tomorrow on the Renfrew Colloquium's YouTube channel. So just Google YouTube Renfrew Colloquium and you'll get a link, and you'll be able to view not only today's presentations, but earlier talks from this semester. So again, thank you, Dean Parrella. Good luck going forward, and we'll look for a progress report from you maybe this time next year.
Sounds great. Thank you, Kenton.
So stay well, everyone. Be safe, and see you again next time.